I'm like a family. It's your brother Landon X, and this is, of course, Nation Town TV Live. Dear family, I want to thank everybody for chiming in. We won't be on long, but I do intend to be on strong. And as you probably noticed, this is going to be our topic real quick. We're going to hit it hard and fast tonight, dealing with the art of distraction. The art of distraction, dear family. What do I mean by distraction? First of all, let me open up in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who mercifully intervened in our affairs in the person of Master W. Fard Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever. I further bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, to be right and exact and down to these modern times. And lastly, I bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is our divine teacher, our torchlight in this dark hour. And in those three great names, I greet all of the Nation Town TV family, all those watching live, all those that will watch later. I greet you in the words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. Real quick, dear family, I was inspired earlier today to touch on this topic real quick, and that is the topic of the art of distraction. As we know, we got a lot going on in the world, and on top of all that we have going on in the world, we got this. We got just a growing cloud of controversy in the hip hop sphere. And what we're going to deal with today is really point out how not only this and these stories, you see Diddy, you see Drake, you see K. Dot, not only how that is a distraction, but also using some examples of the past and how we keep falling for the same trick over and over again. Now, let me be clear. I'm coming from the perspective of a major hip hop fan, huge hip hop fan. I don't know life on this earth without hip hop. I credit hip hop with helping introduce the teachers of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to me. I credit hip hop for being, in some points in my life, damn near all I had that brought sanity to my mind, and in many cases even peace to my mind, growing up. But everything that is of good, as the Quran says, there's a certain kind of people out there who like to make mischief with created things. But before we get into it, we're going to jump real quick to our sponsor, our main sponsor, of course, NationTownStore.com. Real quick, we'll be right back with a quick message. All right, family, let's get it. The art of distraction. It's actually more so of a science, but we're going to deal with it real quick. Let's jump right into it. Because here's something that I realized. Your brother, well, first of all, your brother is a little bit older than you think. And also, not only am I a little bit older than you might think, but I've always been very perceptive. It blows my mind sometimes when I talk to people, and it's a lot of people, especially in my generation and younger, who their memory doesn't even go back like before like 12 years old. It's like some, and then things happen even in their lifetime and they're not aware of. That's something I can't relate to because I've always been perceptive. I grew up in a household of news watchers. My mother was a major news watcher. My grandmother was a major news watcher. My older siblings were news. I always wanted to know what was going on in the world. So looking at some of the things that's going on right now, especially in entertainment, and juxtaposing that with what's going on all over the world, it reminded me of a couple of things. And then it's a little bit of hindsight because I saw things in the past and didn't quite see the big picture because I was a baby. I was younger. And when I was a child, I thought as a child. And now that I'm older, I see that now I know things. I know actual facts today that I did not know in the past. Shout out to everybody chiming in. You can hit us up in the comments section. We're simulcasting today on YouTube as well as Facebook. Shout out to the YouTube Nation Town family. Shout out to the Facebook Nation Town family. Feel free to hit us up with questions and comments. I don't intend to be on long, but you can definitely hit us up with questions and comments on either one. I see you, brother. I see you, Sister Doris Jarvis, that's watching us on Facebook. Hit us up, questions and comments if you see fit. But with that said, let's get right into it, family. I'm not gonna beat around the proverbial bush too much, but let's get it. All right. Here's what I realized. Let me lay down the case real quick. It's gonna be a quick little case that I'm gonna bring forth just to lay pressure on your mind, like it says in our supreme wisdom in the Nation of Islam, just to lay a little pressure in your mind. Let me start off with this. And again, this is Nation Town TV Live, brought to you by NationTownStore.com. Let me bring this to you. Just recently, we lost a brother who, no matter how you feel about him, he's always etched in history because he was the centerpiece of what they call the trial of the century. Orenthal James Simpson. This was considered the crime of the century. I remember being a child, and we in the playoff season right now in the NBA, and I remember the New York Knicks versus the Houston Rockets NBA Finals. I think it was like the first year after Jordan retired and Hakeem Olajuwon was trying to get his first ring. The Knicks was trying to get another ring. It was on, man. And it had a player from my hometown that was playing in it, John Starks. I was really hyped up and watching it with my friends. And then it cut to, this is one of the first times they started using picture in picture, and it cut to a highway in Los Angeles. This was long before your brother lived in Los Angeles. I didn't know the 110 from anything else. And they showed this white Bronco going like 70 miles per hour down the highway. And they said that the juice was in there. And they showed pictures of white folks standing in the street with signs saying the juice is loose. It was just absolute chaos, while at the same time showing the NBA finals. And they dubbed this as the crime of the century, and that's what it was. And it wasn't because OJ was the biggest celebrity in the world. OJ was never that big of a celebrity. In his heyday in the NFL, he played for the Buffalo Bills the vast majority of his career. I think his last year or two he played for the 49ers. But he played in Buffalo, which is a small market, didn't get a lot, didn't get, and they wasn't really that good. He was the best thing going on. His career was very similar in a lot of ways to Barry Sanders. Team wasn't that good, but he was out of this world. So, and then his movie career was mid. He didn't have a big movie career, but he was on movies, goofy movies like Naked Gun. He was a sideline reporter for, I believe, CBS. At the time that all of this went down, that was his most recent job. So we're not talking about a man who was the most famous man in the world. He really wasn't. And the victims weren't famous at all. But what made it the crime of the century is that it brought this racial dynamic that caused black people and white people and all of our inner demons and all of our inner issues and opinions about race in general. And then here's something people don't realize that really just dawned on me recently when OJ died. The OJ Simpson case was really like part three of a racial trilogy that started out here in LA that really rooted all the way back to a little sister named Natasha Harlan, who was I believe, 13-year-old black sister who was murdered in a Korean corner store. She was accused of stealing. Turns out she didn't steal anything, but the Korean female store clerk killed her. And I believe the store clerk only got like 2 years. I think she only spent like about 9 months actually in jail and then like a couple of years probation. And that was the real reason behind the 92 uprising, otherwise called the 92 riots in LA. It was not the Rodney King beating or the verdict. It was just that was the kind of like the gasoline. That was kind of like the lit match on the gasoline that Natasha Harlan had already set. So Natasha Harlan's was like part one. The Rodney King situation slash the LA uprising was like part two. And what made the OJ situation so big is because it was like part three of this trilogy of tension and chaos here in LA. And of course, this is the Hollywood capital of the world, the entertainment capital of the world. So it really made it a big thing, and that's why it was the crime of the century. I'm gonna show that cover to you again. As you can see right there, it says, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, the courtroom drama of the century, and that's exactly what it was. However, here's what people didn't realize: that while we was watching the Bronco chase, while we was watching OJ try on the glove, interestingly enough, the diss song that Kendrick Lamar put out today, the image that he put it out with was the image of a black glove similar to the O.J. Simpson glove. And while we were watching all of that, we was watching my man Johnny Cochran do his thing. He had FOI security because he was getting death threats, all this going on while we was really, and this was the first time, this was really the first reality show. Long before reality shows really took off. This was the first reality show because it was a major trial and it was on TV. That's what gave birth to Court TV and all of that. So while we was sitting up here watching all this, especially we meaning black people, it was some other stuff going on that nobody was checking for. Nobody had an idea what's going on. Some people had an idea, but nobody knew the magnitude of what was going on. You may recognize this cracker, right? I mean, this individual right here. This individual, as you can see right there, is at the time a man who was a United States Senator by the name of Joseph Biden. And he and a young lady named, well, she wasn't too young, but a lady named Hillary Clinton, same, were not only pushing this thing called the crime bill, which, mind you, was also born in California because the three strikes bill really gave birth to the crime bill. The three strikes was like the seed that was planted that motivated Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton to go after this crime bill. But not only were they going in front of Congress and pushing it and trying to get Bill Clinton, to sign it and get behind it, but they were also doing town hall meetings all over the country because the early to mid 90s was the height and the apex of not only the crack epidemic, but also gang violence. And I do mean everywhere, not just LA. I bear witness. It was in, yeah, some of y'all might be old enough to remember a documentary that was on HBO in the early 90s called Banging in Little Rock. Now, what I found funny about Banging in Little Rock is, people realized because of that documentary that they had gangs, Crips and Bloods in Little Rock, Arkansas in the early 90s. But if you look at a map, if you're familiar with a United States map, my hometown, my home state, Tulsa, Oklahoma, is actually closer to California than Little Rock is. So a lot of that came to my hood before it ever hit Little Rock. So that just gives you a little bit of understanding of how that had captured the whole country. I know what Pac said. He said all the mother niggas copycats, D's is G's. Okay, but the guns were real. The dope was real. The caskets were real. The body bags were real, if you understand. So Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton was going all over the country, and all their little minions were going all over the country doing town hall meetings. Now, who goes to town hall meetings? Not young people, not young black people, the same people who vote the most, which are older people. So you had our grandmothers, our aunties, maybe a couple of our uncles going to these town hall meetings and telling the Joe Bidens and Hillary Clintons of the world, man, this gang violence is out of control. I'm scared to leave my house. I'm trying to raise my grandchild, which was a very common occurrence in the 90s because it was the crack era, where a lot of parents were on crack or the father was incarcerated over crack. So a lot of grandmothers had to raise their children in the 80s and 90s. So they like, I'm trying to raise my grandson. I'm trying to keep him out these gangs. As dead bodies on the street every day. Please, please, Hillary. Please, Bill Clinton. Please, Mr. Biden. Please save us. We'll get behind anything y'all come with. And then Bill Clinton on the political side, he was having to face an impending run for re-election that was coming up in 96. And the only thing that Republicans could really have on Bill Clinton at the time was, you're soft on crime. So Bill Clinton had to kind of stunt in front like he was tough on crime. And then at the same time, you had all of this going on with the gangs and all of that. Now, mind you, don't get lost. Like they say, like they say on that social media feed, don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me. Mind you, this is what's on the minds of everybody. Everything I just talked about for the last 2 minutes, nobody was thinking about. Nobody was thinking about this. Nobody was thinking about Joe Biden and the crime bill, which was like a magic trick that made millions of black men disappear in the federal and state penal system. We was talking about this one black man. Nobody was talking about the thousands to maybe even millions who had to end up going through the system thanks to this crime bill, which ravaged the black community almost as much as crack and gangs themselves. And we all know where crack came from, right? Okay, we're going to get to that in a minute. So this is an example in the 90s of where one thing that was sensational and related to entertainment that everybody was so obsessed with, but then at the same time, there was this. There was this, the crime bill. But not only that, shout out to everybody chiming in. I see y'all on Facebook. I see you, Montava Hill, Brother William Bay, Viola Hassan, Norma Jimenez. I see you. Hit me up, questions and comments. We simulcasting on YouTube and on Facebook. If you have any questions, hit me up. Hopefully, I'll see your questions. I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between Facebook and, of course, YouTube. But follow me on this, because that's not the only thing. That's just one example. I could go further back than the 90s, but I decided to just go with the 90s and come up from there for the sake of time. Let's check out another situation that I already kind of mentioned. Does this ring a bell to anybody that's watching? You probably got to be about, if you don't pay attention to history, recent history, and pop culture, and you just kind of, you just getting high every day and playing Call of Duty, and you under the age of 35, you probably might recognize the devil on the left, and you might not have any idea. You might think that's probably his wife on the right. No, not even close. Those of you over 35, or under 35, but you pay attention to what's going on in the world even before you got here, or came of age, what's going on. That's the, what was he, the 40, I want to say 42nd, I think, president of the United States, Bill Clinton, and that's Monica Lewinsky. This was the biggest story of the late 90s. This was the biggest story of the late night. Everybody was talking about Monica and the black dress, a little black dress. I'm not even gonna get into, if you don't already know what happened with the black dress. I don't want to, that's a little too vulgar for me to even get into. But everybody was talking about Bill Clinton and his rendezvous with this child right here. This yeah. But while everybody was talking about that little black dress, while everybody was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened in the Oval Office. While everybody was wondering, and Bill Clinton did get impeached, but a lot of people don't realize impeached does not mean you get kicked out of office. Impeached is the political equivalent of getting arrested or getting charged. You still got to get convicted to get put out of office, right? Okay. So while everybody was talking about this, an amazing thing happened. And I was looking for the article, but I couldn't quite find it. But an amazing thing happened. You remember what I was just talking about? I was talking about the crime bill, right? I was talking about OJ, right? I was talking about how the crime bill was put out there as a solution to the crack epidemic, the gang epidemic. Okay, well, while later on in the 90s, 5 or 6 years later, in the late 90s, while everybody was talking about that little black dress, this book hit the market. Dark Alliance by a white boy named Gary Webb. And I don't use these words very often in describing uh, Caucasians, but I will say it. Gary Webb, may Allah be pleased, because this Caucasian reporter broke the story of the CIA being complicit, not just being complicit, but being the actual main driving force behind the crack epidemic in America. And then, but this is the book that laid everything out. But what was really wild is that on the same day that the story of the little black dress hit the newspaper headlines, the CIA and members of the government released an actual press release essentially apologizing for whatever actions they may have done that might have opened the door for crack cocaine to enter the United. So, in other words, they whispered an apology while everybody was screaming about Monica Lewinsky. A distraction. And it was definitely a distraction. Everybody either had Bill Clinton's back and was like, "Hey, the economy's doing great. He's a great president." Uh, you know, Coons was calling him the first black president because he played the saxophone on City Hall show. But then you had those that were dissing Monica Lewinsky, calling her, everything but a child of God. And then you had those that was dissing Bill Clinton. So it was this was the drama. This was the chaos. But what was really going on was this. The CIA basically conceded the fact that they were complicit in crack cocaine. Now, what does that have to do with your boy in there. What that got to do with Diddy? Come on, brother Landon, you reaching now. What that got to? It's just a rap beef. It's just a hip hop mogul who got caught doing some stuff he ain't supposed to do. First of all, let me deal with this real quick. And this just goes to show. Now, I'm not one of them people that talk about hip hop is dead. I touched on this the last time we dealt with hip hop on the J. Cole apology. I'm not the brother who's gonna say hip hop is dead, because I'm careful about what I call hip hop. You know, Kendrick Lamar is hip hop to me. You know, J. Cole is hip hop to me. There's some great MCs out there, young MCs that they came out over the last few years that are really good. JID, cats like that. You know, Earth Gang, cats like that. That kind of stuff is hip hop to me. You know, Sexy Red, I couldn't fix my mouth to call that hip hop. It's something else. There's something else going on there, but it ain't hip hop. So I'm not one of those people who say hip hop is dead, but one thing I will say is that the hip hop fans have changed. If I was gonna say anything was dead, I wouldn't say hip hop is dead. Hip hop, so-called hip hop fans are dead. And one sign that there's not a pulse in so-called hip hop fans is that hip hop used to be the most rebellious culture in the world. Any movement that was going on in the world, you would find hip hop at the forefront of that movement. In the 80s, when the pro-black movement was big, and even gangster rappers was walking around with African medallions on their neck and all of that, hip hop was in the front of the movement. Where is hip hop today? Now, in hip hop culture, it's almost the same as politics. Now you get canceled if people find out you did something wrong. Now, they don't count selling dope, smoking dope, popping pills, talking about killing your own people, selling dope to your own people. Oh, no, 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 no. That's not cancel worthy. That's cool. That's what's up. That's gangster. Oh, but if you break a law, a different kind of law. Oh, if you said some things to a groupie, and you hurt her feelings, and she sues you for a dollar amount. She don't sue you so you can go to jail over it. She wants a cash settlement. Then now you're canceled. Like, when did hip hop turn into that? When did hip hop turn into this moral compass? I thought hip hop was about rebellion. But anyway, what does all of that have to do with Diddy, with K Dot, with J. Cole, with Drake? Okay. Follow me on this. I realized something interesting about this whole so-called these two, I guess you could say, main stories in hip hop and entertainment, that if you go down your timeline, educated black people, so-called woke black people, even people who say that they, follow the teachers of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, Hebrew Israelites, Black Panther. Everybody's talking about and arguing about and consumed with Kendrick Lamar, Drake, and Diddy. Now, there's something going on right now in Northeast Africa, a couple of places in Northeast Africa. Some things going down in Sudan. There's some things going down in Haiti. And there's a very big thing going down in another part of Northeast, near the Horn of Northeast Africa, in a place that's actually called Palestine. I'm not going to open up that Palestine box, but I will say this: pay close attention to what's going on with Kendrick Lamar and Drake, and then juxtapose or even superimpose that over the situation in the Middle East, and tell me if you see something interesting. Tell me if you see something. Let's look at something. First of all, America has a habit. I won't even call it a habit. It's actually a strategy it's like a play. I'm from the state of Oklahoma, and even if it was before your time, which it was for me, you gonna hear about Jamel Holloway and Barry Switzer and the Oklahoma Sooners college football teams of the '80s. And those teams were so dominant, kind of like how Alabama and Georgia is now. But those teams were so dominant, and they only ran one play on offense. And they just ran different variations of one play, and that was the option. It was option left, option right. Either the quarterback kept it and ran with it, or he flicked it off. And that's how the Caucasian in his government is. He runs the same play as either devil left or devil right. He'll hand it off or he'll keep it. On the world stage, this is what it looks like. He'll take somebody and put them together, put money in their pocket in a foreign country, shake hands with them, take pictures with them, train him, give him resources to go and fight another enemy. And then, after building up that person, giving them the platform and the power and the prestige that they gave them, they'll tear them down and then tell the world that they're a tyrant and that they're evil and that they're murderous and they must be stopped at all costs. They did that with Saddam Hussein. They did that Gorbachev. They did that with too many to name, and most recently they did that with Osama bin Laden. Now, that's the macrocosm. That's the big picture. Let's look at the small picture because they run the same play domestically just as they do internationally. Now, let's look at Diddy. Now, Diddy, I heard he's a good producer. I heard he's a good person when it comes to the images of these artists and marketing. I know for a fact that he's a great marketer. He started off on what they call the street teams, who go through the streets handing out flyers, holding picket signs. He basically invented that. He says he invented the remix. But this is a brother who hasn't made a whole lot of beats. He's not a good rapper, but one of the most powerful people in hip hop. How? I respect the brother. I respect his success, but somebody kind of helped him get to where he is. And now that same somebody is tearing him down, and it's not fair. And we falling for it just like we fell with Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden. Everybody was sitting back on pins and needles waiting to see America catch Osama bin Laden, the same man who they built. When both of the Iraq wars popped off, we were sitting back wondering, oh man, when they gonna find Saddam and take him down? The same Saddam Hussein that they put together pictures of Donald Rumsfeld taking pictures with Saddam Hussein, like they went to school with each other, like they used to party in college with each other. But then 6, 7 years later, we dropping bombs on his head and telling the world that he's a tyrant. Something wrong with that picture. See, wherever there's a microcosm, there's the macrocosm. In the human body, you got billions upon billions of cells, and each one. This is why DNA, can can mess around and get you convicted in a case because your cells carry identifying chemistry that matches your overall body. Through your cells, a person can tell how old you are, your ethnicity, how tall you are. You can find amazing things in just a cell that you can't even see with the unaided eye. So whatever's going on in the small is going on in the big. You follow me? So now let's take another look at Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And I'm gonna be done with this. I gotta hop on this study group. There's a war going on, right? There's a war going on. What kind of war? Now, mind you, it's a war going on, and the catalyst, one of the elements of this war, is a so-called nation that has been in control of the propaganda for years, for years, for years. It's almost like LeBron James, who just been dominating the NBA for years, and now he's losing a step, little bit of a step. He just got eliminated from the playoffs. There's a so-called nation that's something like that that's been that's been tricking the world for years, since the late 1940s, and now especially young people are starting to realize, man, something's up with this little so-called country. I think they stole that country. There's something going on there. And young people are at the forefront. If you're watching the news, there are uprisings on almost every college campus. There are riot gear, riot squads, police officers suited and booted with helmets and riot gear to stop 17-year-old white children on college campuses. Because it's a war going on, right? Is it this war? Notice how in the past they always used the language beef when it came to hip hop. Beef, 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 dissing. But now I was going through social media and I noticed they using a different word. War, war, war. Since when they start calling it war? It was either beef or, now it's war. Almost like they're trying to distract somebody from an actual war. I don't know. And then you got this person who is of Jewish descent. He's a Jew, a very proud Jew, as you should be. You should be proud of whatever you believe in. And just like that little country in Northeast Africa that stole the country, that has no real right to that country, it seems like the whole world is starting to stand up and gang up on that country. This little Jew here in America in the rap game, where it seems like it's the same thing going on. Almost like they're following the script, because they don't want you to know what's really going on the other side of the world. So they give you a little play toy version of it here to distract you. Because keep in mind, if you pay attention to the college campuses, young people ain't falling for the okey doke no more. It reminds me of something growing up. 4th of July, Thanksgiving. Many of you are familiar with what they used to call the kiddie table. See, but I grew up in the hood. A lot of times it wasn't no table for the children to sit and eat at Thanksgiving. So they used to take newspaper, lay it out on the floor, and then you and your little cousins, y'all ate y'all little junior, Thanksgiving meals or 4th of July barbecue on the floor on some newspaper. You Cosby Show, Huxtable type Negroes who grew up like that, you would call it the kiddie table. See, it's a kiddie table war going on, and we calling it hip hop. Go, little Negro, and sit down, and you go play. You go play with the kiddie war. You go play with the kiddie war while the grown folks deal with the big war. While the grown folks deal with the big war. Distraction. So y'all see where I'm going with this. A little Jew, and even in his own words, he said, I feel like it's, 1 versus 20 or 20 versus 1. I just saw a interview from a certain Jew who said the same thing about the conflict in the Middle East or Northeast Africa, as it actually is. He said he feels like people are ganging up on that little so-called country. Distraction. And I'm going to close with this. Now, what are they distracting us from? What are they distracting us from? Now, first of all, one of the I'm bouncing back and forth from the kiddie table to the grown folks table. One thing that I keep hearing that I heard from the kiddie table when Kendrick Lamar dropped his previous response to Drake, I believe it was like almost 7 minutes long. The song was, and people was like, "Man, that's too long. I didn't even know what he was talking about. I had to go get a dictionary. I had to Google half the stuff he said. Man, that was too long. 6 minute song." But there was a man in February who laid all of this out by the name of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And he laid it out in a Savior's Day address that was about 3.5 hours long. This is why they want us to have such a, short attention span. We crying over a 6 minute song that's got a beat to it. So surely we can't pay attention to a 3.5 hour speech, and ain't no choir singing, ain't nobody dancing on the stage, and a 90-year-old man who's backed by God and his Christ is laying out everything that's going on right now. So we didn't catch that. We didn't catch all of that. This family is something that's called, if we really understand, it's the law in physics of impenetrability. 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 Now, when I define this law, it's going to make more sense and it's going to sound more familiar. The law of impenetrability is the name given to that quality of matter whereby two bodies cannot occupy the same space at the same time. Impenetrability. Two things can't occupy the same space at the same time, and including that space between your ears, your brain. Because everything I'm talking about right now, and when you begin to talk about what's going, if you talk to somebody, not just a young person, you can talk to a 40, 50-year old about what's going on in Northeast Africa, what's going on in Haiti, what's going on in the Sudan, what's going on in Palestine, and you'll see their eyes cloud over. And then when you ask them, so what do you think about it? They'll probably be like, man, I mean, shoot, man, here's what it is, man. And then you say, well, what you think about K-Dot's last response to Drake? Oh, man, man, it was whack. Man, you get these passionate responses because two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. See, the most wicked scientists of the world, they understand this. So what are they actually trying to hide? And if there's a distraction, it must be something that they're distracted from. It's funny. I was going down my timeline because I'm the opposite. If you ask me about the so-called beefs in hip hop, if you ask me about Diddy and all of that, I'm be like, hey man, hey, hey, is what it is. You ask me about what's really going on in the world, then you're gonna get a passionate response from me. But I find it funny that people were saying, man, K Dot, his responses, Kendrick Lamar, his responses, damn, you gotta get a dictionary. You gotta Google just to understand everything that he's saying about Drake. Interesting. Because one of the main things that we're being distracted from is the fact that the Caucasoid Jew is actually trying to change the definitions of words and even make what's in the Bible, not the Quran, that's next, but what's in the Bible, your grandmama's Bible, what's in the Bible illegal. Y'all don't believe me. I don't think y'all believe me. Republicans voting for bill that could make Bible illegal. What? Check it out. Congress on Wednesday passed the bill which would require the Department of Education to use the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition, not a simple dictionary, not an actual fact, not what should be taught in every English class, not what's Googleable, but just like how they playing with what the definition of a man and a woman is. It don't have nothing to do. Now it don't have nothing to do with what you got between your legs. Now it's just how you feel that day. You can be a man on Monday and a female on Wednesday. Now they're doing the same thing with anti-Semitism. And many Jewish scholars believe that the New Testament of the Bible is anti-Semitic. And based on let me say it. Let me try to say it in one breath. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. So they changing, they banning the Bible and changing the dictionary while you worried about drinking them. While you worried about what Diddy doing in his bedroom. Gotcha. Gotcha. Got him, coach. Got him, coach. Dear family, I'm here to tell you. And at the same time, America is insolvent. As the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan pointed out at Savior's Day, insolvent means broke. She ain't got it. She broke. America is broke. America cannot pay its bills, and it's impossible for it to pay all of its bills. It's one thing, to just pat your pockets and say, man, I ain't even got it right now. No. America is so deep in debt, it could never pay off that debt. The war of Armageddon has begun. All of this is going on, and we arguing over whether or not Kendrick Lamar is winning the war with the Lil Ju Boy. The dumbing down of America is complete. Mission accomplished. The distraction is in full effect, family. So I'm going to stop it there before I start crying. But dear family, I appreciate y'all checking in with me. We're going to do this again next week. But I want to also quick shout out to our family here if you're in the Los Angeles area, y'all already know what it is. Be my esteemed guest, and I treat my guests well. Be my esteemed guest at our mosque meeting this Sunday. We have a major visiting student minister, Brother Demetric Muhammad of the Nation of Islam Research Group, dealing with the subject, Turn My Young Brothers and Sisters Over to the Nation of Islam, which was a quote from the minister in this year's Savior's Day address. And then, of course, if you get the opportunity, for just $25 tomorrow at the Community Center, 8039 South Vermont at 1 o'clock, he's going to be dealing with a point number 12 boot camp to give you all of the information you need to really gird up your spiritual loins in understanding what we call in the Nation of Islam point number 12. If you know, you know. And if you can't make it out this weekend, of course, every Sunday, 8039 South Vermont, come and be our guest. Be my guest. Come holler at your brother at our Muhammad Mosque number 27 meeting. Dear family, thank you for putting up with me. Once again, Nation Town TV Live. I'm going to leave you as I greeted you in the words of peace. Shout out to everybody chiming in.